Well.
That's what hell's all about. Demon sex parties.
When in hell.
When in hell. Screw a demon. Or let the demon screw you. I don't know.
And there's our opener. Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of the Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
make yourself a grasshopper,
and enjoy the ride. Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful because we just watched the Hofstadter Isotope.
Oh, yeah.
For any new listeners out there, I'm Rob, and this is my co-host Ryan. We are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. I've seen the series multiple times, but this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. And Ryan has also been told that he's very similar to being Sheldon, so we keep a point tally of how close Ryan is to being Sheldon.
Right now, I am at 63 points, me not like Sheldon, that I am connected to things that Sheldon does not do or does not understand, and 65 points for me being similar to Sheldon, for me identifying like Sheldon or behaving like he does.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing how you end up. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Follow the link in our show notes to all of our social media. There you will also find a link to a history of all of our IQ points. And we love getting emails, so email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Speaking of which, we actually did just get a new email.
We did?
Yeah. It was from Naomi. I opened it, so you probably can't see it in the... But Naomi, she's actually emailed us before. So a couple weeks ago, we gave her a shout out. We'll give her a shout out again. She writes, "Hey, not fully caught up on the pod yet at mid-season 2. If possible, could you guys include director commentary or information from actor interviews or any behind-the-scenes information that might be publicly available for the episodes? Maybe that sort of stuff isn't available for the older episodes, but I'm hoping there's some as the seasons progress. Once again, love the podcast. Just finished rewatching the whole series again. The podcast is a great and easy way to continually consume, hyperfixate on Big Bang content. Naomi." So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good idea. In fact, I was kind of thinking, like, if we continue this, maybe even investing in like a DVD set and watching some of the commentary on those at some point and making some comments. But we're still working out the details on this. Or I think a year and a half ago we didn't know it was going to last this long, so I'm glad it has, and now we're kind of still looking forward to the future and like, this is sticking.
Yeah, it's been going really well so far. We're almost at the end of season 2. Season 3 is going to be, it's going to get good. I'm looking forward to you watching it.
Things are going to get real.
Yeah, and we're going strong. Ryan and I have been talking offline a lot about like what our future expectations of this podcast are, and both of us are still on track. Both of us are still like very invested in this. Yeah. So we do want to keep evolving our podcast. This is for the viewers, it's also for us too, but like, yeah, if you guys want some background information up per episode, we can try to look into that.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll find some stuff. But Naomi, thank you, and we will start giving background information. And next up in housekeeping is our 5-star review contest. If you give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, you will be automatically entered in. Well, not automatically. There's a couple steps.
There's another step.
There is a step. So you're semi-automatically entered into a raffle for a $100 Amazon gift card. So we do have I did type up some directions. So if you follow our show notes, you'll find some written out directions. But basically, if you give us a 5-star review, you have to write something. So you write something and then email us your screen name, just so we know who you are and how to contact you in the event that you win.
And we've had a couple people email us and say, hey, I left a review before, and we're keeping track of that, right?
Yeah, so if you've actually written a review before, just shoot us an email of who your what your screen name is. That way we can track you down. We'll throw you in the raffle, and on December 3rd, the winner will be announced. We chose that date because it is when our season 2 recap will be released. So we need all entries by December 1st, 2023. Speaking of new reviews, we have a new 5-star from Mama Shell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's from Michelle, and she has been officially entered into the raffle. So there are 4 entries now in the raffle. So you have a very good chance of winning. There's
Those
a 25%.
Good odds.
Yeah, it's very good odds right now. But Mama Shell wrote, it's 5 stars. Title is, if you're a Big Bang Theory fan, you'll love the podcast. She says, I'm enjoying every episode. I listen when I'm en route to my work assignments as a travel nurse. The deep dives are fun. I learn things about stuff I didn't know I wanted to learn. Rob and Ryan are doing a great job. True crime bonus too.
Yeah.
And if you're a new listener, there is a true crime incident that happened in my life. I won't dive into it, but if you're into true crime, listen to our episode 22, which was season 2, episode 4, The Griffin Equivalency. The first half hour is dedicated to a true crime incident that we're tracking right now. And we're tracking it because it happened to me.
So it happened next door to you.
Yeah. But I am involved. And
You're involved.
I was evacuated.
You're evacuated. And you might get called in to testify at some point, too. We don't know.
I'm kind of just waiting to see if I get subpoenaed in. But hopefully I don't.
Yeah.
All right. Last bit of thing. Like I said, we are winding down to our season 2 recap episode. So during these recaps, Ryan and I like to do superlatives. So we're going to talk best episode, worst episode, best celebrity cameo, best moment, worst moment, favorite story arc. We'll even talk about our old IQ points. What's our favorite IQ point? Which is our least favorite IQ point? Things like that.
Best brisket, worst brisket.
Yep, great segue into our brisket video. Compliments to Rebecca's great-grandmother. We check out our YouTube video for how we made that brisket.
Easy and delicious.
I can't wait to have that again. Oh my god. Yeah, so feel free to send us your superlatives towards the end of the season. What's your favorite moment of season 2? What was your favorite episode? What was your least favorite? Just anything, whatever you want.
Favorite facial expression Rob made.
Well, anything else I missed, Ryan?
I think that's about it.
All right. So let's dive into it then. Overall thoughts of this episode?
It's not my favorite, but it was enjoyable. Kind of a little bit of a filler episode, but still nothing. It wasn't boring. Some straight up laugh out loud moments, so I enjoyed it.
I'm actually on the opposite end. I think this is actually one of my favorite episodes.
Really?
I like the introduction of Stuart. He is great. He does have an interesting arc. I guess not to spoil it for you, but he will come back.
Okay, so he's going to be a reoccurring character.
Yeah.
At first, I thought he was like the guy who built the battle bots, and I'm like, wait, that's not the battle bot guy. It's a different guy.
Oh yeah. You know what? All white guys look the same.
Seriously. Especially these comic book nerds, self included.
You had a beard on him. That's Ryan.
That's me. How'd I get on the show?
But I loved all the comic book stuff, and I love it because back in 2009, I've said this before on previous episodes, this was really before the comic book craze hit the mainstream media. Like, this was around the time the MCU was just getting started. People were just building interest in it and stuff like that. So there wasn't a lot of shows that really talked about this stuff, that really kind of embraced it. And this episode was really heavily involved with comic books.
Yeah.
So
And
that's why I really enjoyed it.
I like the field trip to the comic book store, because ever since I was a kid and started playing Magic the Gathering and going to comic book stores, it is kind of like a what's the word, a not quite a paradise, but a little oasis from the world. And I'd say even bookstores, Barnes and Noble, but something about a comic book store, it's like I feel in my element there. It's like I'm surrounded by stuff I love. So I did enjoy that.
This is Season 2, Episode 20, The Hofstadter Isotope. Aired April 13th, 2009. Written by Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and teleplay by David Ghosh. Directed, as always, by Mark Stanjowski. Opening scene. The guys are eating Thai food, and Sheldon is just groaning over it. He is not happy. And we find out why. It's because it's Thursday, and it's usually pizza day. However, this is the third Thursday of the month, so it's anything can happen Thursday.
I like how this is an ongoing joke through the episode, and I think it plays out very well. Each time it gets reused, it's funnier and funnier. It doesn't get old, but yeah, the anything can happen Thursday, they voted on it, and now they switch up their Thursdays a little bit.
Yep, because they're trying to break out of the rut that Sheldon would actually call consistency. But I would agree, it's nice to kind of just change things up a little bit. Well, he tries to outlogic them by saying, well, we should just go to the comic book store. But they went there yesterday. But Sheldon is trying to outlogic them. But then Howard chimes in and suggests going bar hopping because it's Thursday, which usually means ladies' nights at bars. And Leonard has a little bit of lack of confidence, so he kind of just shuts it down, because what are the chances that they're going to hook up with a beautiful girl? Well, then Howard...
zero.
Yep. Well, Howard says, have you ever heard of the Drake equation? Which Sheldon gets extremely excited about and does a very, very quick summary of it. He says, the one that estimates the odds of making contact with extraterrestrials by calculating the product of an increasingly restrictive series of fractional values. Sorry, I'm trying to go as fast as him.
And he spits it off so quickly, too. It's a great verse for him.
Yeah, such as those stars with planets, and those planets likely to develop life. N equals R times FP times NE times FL times FI times FC times L. How do you even breathe? But
yeah, that one.
Yep. And I love Howard. He's just like, yeah, duh. So this leads into my first IQ point, the Drake equation. Did you do anything on this?
I looked into it. I tried to figure out what all those not numerals, letters were. The N's, the R's, the F's, the N's.
Yeah.
And the Z's, L's.
Did you want to take this one since I just dominated the mic, or do you want me to take it?
Sure, I can take it. I can start it off. It's not too long. So we get the N, the whole start of it, and this is the number of intelligent communicating civilizations out in the Milky Way. And we're trying to figure out, like, is there alien life? Is there alien life trying to contact us? How many races or civilizations are there out there doing this? And so we start off with this formula that R is the rate of star formation. So how many stars are there? How quickly do they generate? How will they continue to generate? FP, and what I came down to is F stands for fraction. And so in all these F's is fraction. FP is the fraction of planet systems. So fraction of stars with planet systems. And then the NE is the number of planets in those planet systems with conditions that could host life. And then FL is the fraction of life on fraction of those planets that do actually produce life. And then FI is the fraction of those life-bearing planets that have intelligent life that are able to think, I guess, and are self-aware. And then FC is a fraction of those intelligent life civilizations that are able to communicate. And L is the lifetime that those civilizations last. So it's kind of this notion that if we take all the stars out there, all the stars with planets, all the stars with planets and planets that have conditions for life and have actual life that is intelligent and able to communicate, yet in our same time period, because it takes how many thousands of years, tens, hundreds of thousands of millions of years to actually produce life and grow, we start to see that number in the number of intelligent communicating civilizations out there. And we really have no way of predicting this because we're still finding stars all the time, and there's all these other, you know, questions with it. But for the most part, we know that the N is probably pretty high. And when we get down to it, that with millions of each one of these in every step, that the N is certainly a number, which means that there's at least some life forms out there trying to communicate, or supposedly. But yeah, I think that's all I got. Did you get anything more?
Yeah, I did a little bit more background on it. So you
Mhm.
captured really well what the equation actually is and how they actually calculate it.
Mhm.
But then it kind of makes me wonder like how accurate this is. So we need to take a little bit of a deep dive into its history.
Yeah.
So the Drake equation is in fact a real equation that scientists use or supposedly use, and I'll get into that. This was formulated by Frank Drake to calculate the probability of communicative extraterrestrial civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. So only our galaxy and intelligent life, so not primordial life. It was presented at the first SETI conference in 1961, and SETI stands for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This was actually a huge deal. Like this was a big deal in the 60s
This
because this was
equation?
yeah, this equation like the and when it was presented, it turned into like a really big deal in the scientific world because this was at the time of the 60s, this was a new and fresh way of thinking, and it opened up the conversation of searching for intelligent life because at this point people really weren't thinking about it. People really didn't care. They just were on this planet, we're going about our life, no one really cares. The thought that this was brought to a conference where people were like, we should be able to look at this, we should be able to think about this, we should be searching for extraterrestrial life, because knowing what we know with the planets and the stars and all these other galaxies, we already know this because of Galileo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it would be ridiculous to not search for this intelligent life. And the people of the 60s were like, holy shit, I've never even considered that. I've never even thought about that. So this equation was actually never meant to output a number for n.
Hmm.
So even though it's an equation that can calculate things, because I actually tried to figure out like, well, if we can calculate this, what is n currently? But that's not the point of the equation. The point of the equation was to actually stimulate scientific dialogue. So
A
it was
rhetorical question of sorts.
exactly.
Yeah.
So this was never meant to produce a number. It's praised because it's praised as one of the most important contributions to scientific inquiry, but and it's also known as the roadmap to finding extraterrestrial life. It is, however, highly criticized because there are so many variables in the equation with too many uncertainties.
Yeah.
There's really no firm conclusions that could be ever made for this equation. Like, we really don't know how many stars are out there. We don't really know how many of those planets support life. Like, there's just so many uncertainties that it's like,
Or
well,
just because it supports life in the way we understand life is supported doesn't mean there aren't planets out there that support life in a different manner. Or, we're thinking of carbon-based life forms, not necessarily, uh, you know, thinking abstractly, what does life actually mean? What does an entity or self-aware communicating being mean? It presents some issues, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why the whole point of the Drake equation is to kind of stimulate that conversation and get us thinking about it.
Mm,
How can we discover intelligent life? Is there intelligent life out there? Kind of things like that. So
yeah.
that's why it's like it's highly praised because at the time at like I was saying, at the time it was a fresh way of thinking, but now people are kind of like, well, it's not really that much of a thing now, but it does raise a lot of questions and it does open up a lot of conversations.
And I have to think of what Stephen Hawking said about us trying to communicate with outside life forms or broadcasting our existence. The notion that if we do find a higher intelligent life form out there that can communicate with us, we should probably think about it more like the Europeans coming over to the Americas and what happened there. And if we're consider ourselves the America saying, "Hey, we're here, come play with us," yeah, those aliens probably aren't going to come and play with us. They're probably going to come and dominate us and hurt us.
Independence Day.
Independence Day style. I'm hoping that's not the case, but
Yeah.
realistically, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I always think about is, did you ever watch that movie Contact? I think
Yes,
it's from
Jodie
like 90.
Foster.
Yes. Like
Uh,
when they keep asking, it's like, hey, do you believe in alien life out there? And and the only answer was like, well, if they didn't exist out there, it's a lot of wasted space.
yeah,
So they're
it's,
probably out there.
that's a good scene. I'm like, I remember hearing this before, and I think it's Jodie Foster who mentions it. I don't think she calls it. Maybe she does say the Drake equation, but she does say, if it's all these stars, all these planets, then it'd be a lot of wasted space. But I'm hoping, like, I'd rather the wasted space than mean aliens.
Being like dominated by the
Yeah,
aliens.
Mars attack style.
Oh my god. Well, that's all I had on the Drake equation.
Nice.
So now we move on, and Howard has adapted this Drake equation to the Wolowitz coefficient, which will calculate the chances that they'll have sex. And he goes into saying, like, it's neediness times dress size squared. And he finds that there are 5,812 potential sex partners in a 40-mile radius. And then I laugh out loud.
Let's
He was
bounce, bitches.
well, there's that, and I'm a horny engineer. I never joke about math or sex. So this isn't necessarily an IQ point, but when he said that there was 5,812 potential sex partners in a 40-mile radius, I kind of thought that he was like, that number seemed kind of high. Is it just me, or does that seem kind of high?
I don't know if you're in a downtown setting.
5,812 potential sex partners. That just like I guess my mind kind of just like spurred to like, well, the age range,
I was gonna
level
say
of attractiveness, but
doesn't really care about age, though, does he?
no, he doesn't seem to care about age. He doesn't really seem to care about looks. He doesn't really seem to. He just wants to like stick it in.
He just wants the action.
He kind of just does. So then after I did a little bit of math, so I did a little bit of math on this. So I won't call it an IQ point because I very half-assed it. So
Fair.
I looked at some census data and I looked at just Pasadena because they're in Pasadena. Granted, he did mention the LA area, but I just looked at Pasadena because I didn't want to look at all the cities within a 40-mile radius. And apparently, he might be actually more or less right.
Huh.
So, Pasadena, California has 134,211 people. 71,000 are females. And if we remove underage girls, that leaves 57,000 women, all within proper, in quote, dating age. So pretty much 18 and above. And according to Thrive Center of Psychology.com, According to Thrive Center and psychology.com, about 40% of the population is single. So if we take that 57,000 women, 40% would be 22,800 people. So that's technically how many potential partners there are. Because if you think 18 and above and you don't care about age, that's how many there are. Granted, it doesn't give the definition of single. Like, because technically, if you're dating someone, you're not really single.
That's true.
It depends on the interpretation, though. So that's where it gets a little on the murky side, because some people are like, well, if there ain't no ring on it, you're single. You know, it's like, well, that's not necessary. If you're in a serious committed relationship, you're not single.
You would think.
Yeah.
And these numbers say nothing about neediness or dress size, do they?
No.
Yeah.
So if you actually cut that down, the 5,812 actually is a relatively accurate number. So I was like, oh, okay.
Interesting.
Well, and then Raj, I love Raj on this one. He's like, lock up your daughters. We're going to hit it and quit it.
He's going to town on that.
Yeah. And then I love that. It's so relatable that, like, they want to go out. And then they kind of look at each other. It's like, well, maybe we'll do it next time, but tonight we'll go to the comic book store.
Maybe just go back to the comic book store.
They just want to stick with the familiar. And I found that very relatable, because I found myself in that situation, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, who wants to go clubbing? It's like, well, I kind of want to go, but I'd rather just watch a movie.
Yeah, it sounds fun. Oh, you mean tonight?
Tonight. I don't know, man. I gotta prepare. And then they decide that next Anything Can Happen Thursday, it's on.
Anything can happen.
I love Raj's answer to that. You heard that, ladies' night, ladies. We're eventually coming for you.
And I passed it by, but there was one point for me being like Sheldon here. And it was when he says that they should tell him any night Thursday, Anything Can Happen Thursday, is what's happening to his digestive system. Anything can happen. And when I start mixing up my, I try to eat lots of different things. I love experimenting with food, but if I don't eat the same thing regularly, anything can happen. So I understand that. Anything can happen to my digestive system when I mix up my...
Well, we get the opening scene, or we get the opening
intro
credit.
Yes, something.
We get the credits, and now on to the next scene. The guys are heading out, and they run into Penny, and she asks them to pick up some comics for her nephew, because his 13th birthday is just around the corner. And this is a loaded task, because we don't know what he likes. And then she just says, pick anything. And I find this like Sheldon is known for being a bit of a kook, but if you really stop and think about the things that he's saying, it really makes sense. Because it's like, dude, you can't just pick anything. It's like, you can't just pick out a new suit without knowing his size.
100%, I would come back with a comic that is not appropriate for a 13-year-old. Like,
yeah,
Ryan, this is hentai, or it looked fun. I thought he'd enjoy it.
I saw some tentacles, and I thought it was fine.
Slippery little suckers.
And then he just goes on and on about, like, hey, we need more details. So honestly, I agree with Sheldon on that. I know it's a little bit annoying, but at the same time, it's like, dude, you can't just pick anything. Yeah. You can't just give a 13-year-old Archie comics. Or can you?
Depends on the 13-year-old.
Yeah, we need a better understanding.
We need information.
So then Penny, I just love it. Like, she just like ignores Sheldon and looks at Leonard. It's like, please be reasonable, Leonard.
Yeah.
And then she just spurts out Spider-Man. Get him, Spider-Man. Well, which one? Amazing Spider-Man? Ultimate Spider-Man? Spectacular Spider-Man? The Marvelous Adventures of Spider-Man? Or Spider-Man 2099? Oh, forgot. Sensational Spider-Man. So Penny is now forced to go with them because they can't make the choice for her. And this is where we go on to the next IQ point.
Oh,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. You
So
know,
we will not be discussing Across the Spider-Verse, but we will be talking about all of these different variations of Spider-Man. Did you do anything on this?
I
Or?
actually didn't. I don't know why it didn't click with me. I was
This is the Spider-Man talk I told you about.
oh yeah. I was thinking of last episode with Green Lantern and how there's multiple Green Lanterns in the DC universe. Um and I had never known that, but I for some reason when I think of Spider-Man, I always think of multiple Spider-Men because of the Spider-Verse. But it was always very surprising to me that other comic books do have multiple superheroes like that. And we talked about Green Lantern, but yeah, I'm interested in what he got. I don't know why I
Yeah.
completely
In
overlooked this.
well, kind of going on to that, like if you're not a comic book reader or if you don't really follow comic books, sometimes the titles of the character is more of a mantle. There's Hawkeye, but now we're evolving into a new Hawkeye. So it's like somebody else takes his place and they just take on the mantle of Hawkeye. So that
Mhm.
kind of goes into the question is like, are all these different Spider-Man a different mantle? And that's what I researched because as a comic book lover and someone that I grew up reading a lot of comic books, I didn't have every run. I didn't have
Mhm.
every variety. So even when I like heard these titles, I was like, well, what's the difference? Like, is there a difference? Is it a different Spider-Man? Is it a different multiverse? Is like what's going on? So here are the differences between all of the Spider-Mans. So first he mentions The Amazing Spider-Man. And this was the first publication starting in 1963. And by 2022, it hit 900 issues. There was a couple stops and restarts for this one. This was the flagship story. Peter Parker as a high school teen dealing with teen drama while being a superhero, all while working at the Daily Bugle. It features villains like the Green Goblin and has Gwen Stacy as his girlfriend and introduces Mary Jane Watson. And if you all remember the Spider-Man animated series from 1994, this is where most of the stories derived from. And then we go on to Spectacular Spider-Man. So, following The Amazing Spider Man was The Spectacular Spider Man in 1968. This came about due to the popularity of The Amazing Spider Man. It started off as as a two-issue series, but then was later brought back in 1976 for a longer run. And during this era of Spectacular, the stories focused more on Peter Parker's campus life as an undergraduate student and teacher's assistant at Empire State University, and giving more attention to his colleagues than to the more long running supporting characters in The Amazing Spider Man. From here, we move on to Ultimate Spider Man. This ran from 2000 to 2011. This is a modern retelling of the original Spider Man series that exists alongside other revamped Marvel characters in the Ultimate titles. This includes Ultimate X Men, Ultimate Fantastic Four, and the Ultimates. And now we move on to Marvelous Adventures of Spider Man. And I couldn't find anything on this one. I honestly, I searched high and low, so I was not sure what this is. And I wasn't sure if this was just a one off issue
Mhm.
because there were other things, The Marvelous Adventures of Gus Breezer and Spider Man. That's what it was called. So it follows this kid, Gus Breezer, and he is a very imaginative child that meets his heroes. So in this particular issue, he met Spider Man. But there was also multiple episodes where he met other superhero characters. Like there was another one with the X-Men where Gus Breezer meets the X-Men. So I couldn't really confirm if
Yeah.
that's what he was talking about because it just seemed like it was a one-off issue. And now we move into Spider-Man 2099. We'll be discussing this character a lot in our discussion with Across the Spider-Verse because this is so Spider-Man 2099 is Miguel O'Hara. This was created in 1992, and Miguel O'Hara is an Irish Mexican geneticist living in Nueva York, a renamed New York City, in the year 2099, who attempts to recreate the abilities of the original Spider-Man, and later will suffer a related accident that causes half of the DNA to be rewritten with a spider's genetic code. And then he mentions Sensational Spider-Man. And this was published in 1992 and ran through 1999. This was a series of reprints of older comics from the Marvel Team Up and The Amazing Spider-Man, plus a trade paperback in 1988 featuring Frank Miller's Spider-Man. And I'm guessing he kind of forgot about this one just because it's a series of reprints. It's not really new storyline.
Yeah.
And then as I was diving into this, I found so many other titles of comic book runs. There was the Avenging Spider-Man, the Marvel Team Up, and Spider-Man Family. But I would imagine that these aren't really Spider-Man titles necessarily because they're more of a team up thing where he kind of partners with the Fantastic Four or the X-Men and stuff like that.
I was gonna say, when it comes to like Venom gets his own comics, and sometimes Spider-Man joins up with him. But although Venom and Spider-Man are rivals, they are, yeah. I wouldn't say it's a Spider-Man comic; it's a Venom comic where he fights Carnage and other demonic beings.
Yeah, and he just kind of happens to be there. He's not necessarily the lead character.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff like that. But now, if we want to look to the future on this Spider-Man conversation, beyond 2009 of when this episode came, becomes Superior Spider-Man. So this started during the second relaunch of The Amazing Spider-Man in 2012. This series continues from the events of the 2012 storyline Dying Wish, in which Peter Parker is killed off and replaced with his nemesis Otto Octavius, who swapped consciousness with Parker and left him to die in his decaying body to ensure his own survival. However, Octavius becomes inspired by Parker's dying wish to have a new Spider-Man protect New York City and decides to take on the mantle himself, becoming the self-proclaimed Superior Spider-Man.
And that's AKA Dr. Octopus, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Doc
Ock
kills Peter Parker, switches minds, and he becomes Spider-Man. And now, in the more popular run, currently, because Across the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales, created in 2011, whom was directly influenced by the actor Donald Glover from Community.
Huh.
Yeah, he was actually like the inspiration for the creation of Miles Morales.
I didn't know that.
So it's kind of a crazy story. Like, before all this happened, on an episode of Community, Donald Glover was wearing a Spider-Man outfit. Very brief moment, but that inspired a bunch of writers to just start like animating and everything. Like, whoa, what if there was a young Black Spider-Man? And this was around the time of like Obama and everything like that too, like when he was making his rise and everything. And that's kind of how Miles Morales was born. Miles first appears in the Ultimate series during the death of Spider-Man, and then he later on gets his own run of comics. And they actually wanted, fun fact, they actually wanted to introduce him earlier, back in 2008, but it just didn't happen because, like, you know, comic book politics and publishing and stuff like that. It just didn't happen.
Which I've got something to say on that after we're done with this IQ point. Comic book politics, something interesting.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's pretty much it. And I just thought to myself, man, if he actually did come out a little earlier, Sheldon would have given him a shout out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Community and like basically had the.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know. It's amazing. Another Community tie in. I love Community.
but the Spider Verse was a thing like before Miles, right? Like back in the 90s, the cartoon, I remember that having the Spider Verse in it with Madam Web
Yeah.
and Spider Man going through different dimensions. So they're kind of explaining, there might be different explanations on the story, but going to other dimensions to right, it's almost like Quantum Leap, right the wrongs and set the vast verse, Spider Verse back to its rightful place, right? And
Yes. Sorry, I muted. I
that's
muted.
no worries. I remember
Yes.
Venom, and I love Venom. And my understanding, it was created by Todd McFarlane, right?
I don't know.
The
Go
guy
ahead.
who created Spawn, and Venom became kind of like this iconic anti-hero that everybody loved, but McFarlane hated that he didn't have the rights, I guess, and so he started his own comic book line, and Spawn was like the main title
Oh
under it.
shit! Now that I'd never connected those two, but like Spawn actually is very similar to
He
Venom,
has a cape, but other than the cape, very similar to Venom,
and
right?
he can manipulate his outer shell, I
Costume
guess.
to do
Yeah.
things, yeah. And so originally, I guess the black symbiote costume was like part of Spider-Man was part of like a gladiator fight or something in space, and he got the symbiote that way. It was a black costume that took over. And then it was a later series that said, oh, the symbiote was an alien being that came down. And I remember the cartoon series that came down with like was it Flash Gordon? Came down with astronauts, and Spider-Man obtained it, and he got rid of it with like a bell and thought he got rid of it, but then it took over his rival at photographer at the Daily Bugle. And then now it's that the alien symbiote is, I guess in the Venom movies, I'm not entirely sure what's going on. They're like a race of symbiote aliens that are trying to conquer the world, but
Yeah.
something like that. But in the Venom comics, it's like the symbiote is a production, like the best I can explain it is with Transformers. Unicron, who's like the evil robot that destroys everything. Apparently, there is a dark god of darkness that tries to destroy everything because he wants the universe to be darkness again. And when light came, he spewed his symbiotes out to the universe to try to kill the light. And Venom is, or the symbiote is one of those things. And so Venom, as we know him, is trying to defeat. Well, I believe they bring Carnage back to life, and he has to kill Carnage and then kill all these other symbiotes that are servants of this dark god. But what's interesting about this, or that I was saying, comic politics. Part of the reason McFarlane left Marvel was because he wanted to start a company that would give the artists the rights to their characters. They would maintain their rights, and part of DC and Marvel, it's really hard to keep your rights. Basically, it's like working for uh, Disney, right? Where if you draw a cartoon or create a character, Disney owns that character. You don't. And that's kind of sad in some ways, but it's also capitalism. The big thing right now is there's a comic book series called Fables. Have you heard of it?
I've heard the video game called Fable, but I haven't
Um,
heard of a TV show.
Different. Fable, the Xbox game is different, although I believe Telltale Hearts, not Telltale Hearts, Telltale Games, the ones who are responsible for The Walking Dead and Back to the Future, made a game out of this too, apparently, or so they say, or they're working on it. I don't know, but it's a popular comic book series where certain fairy tale characters get kicked out of fairy tale land and have to go live elsewhere, And apparently, DC made a deal with Telltale Games, and the creator of Fables did not get like residuals or anything really. And he's like, I could take them to court. And DC's stance was, take us to court. We don't fucking care. And it's the big company versus the lone artist. I'm sure he's wealthy, but the thing is, even if you're wealthy, the amount of time and money is still, I mean, it will crush you to take a whole corporation because they have more time and they have more money. And so he's like, I want to hit them where it hurts elsewhere. And he goes, what's something that I know I have that they don't? And he has, apparently clearly in the contracts, he has full ownerships of the characters. And so he says, fuck you. They're all in the public domain as of this morning. That was like Friday, I believe, the 15th.
Oh, shit.
And DC says, don't listen to him. He's lying. That's not true at all. And we've never actually had a case where an owner of intellectual knowledge or intellectual property has said, my intellectual property is public domain. They forfeit their rights, but they've never actually. So we are looking at a whole new legal thing. And it's also saying, DC, Marvel, maybe you have too much power. And there's other ways to screw you over if you're going to treat artists like dicks. And I love comics. I love Marvel. I do love some DC comics. But I do believe that the industry, the corporate function, the same reason why McFarlane got upset and started his own line, it gets too greedy at times. And I'm really curious where this is going to go. Because from my understanding, if he had the rights, he can make it public domain. Now, how that works, I don't know. And they basically still have to pay him for every publication they make with the characters. But anybody anywhere can use the characters to make new cartoons or comics and republish things and other stuff, as I understand.
We better start our Printify right now.
Exactly. We are a publisher. So some cool comic book politics going on. And again, this is like within the past like 2 days.
This kind of does coincide with what's happening with the writers with the writers' strike.
It is, exactly. Yeah.
Because these writers are getting dicked over like hard.
And every now and then I hear somebody say like, hey, I don't get royalties for what I make. And it's like, well, technically, if you have to say that, maybe you should. Like, if you create an invention and your company takes credit for that and you don't get any royalties for creating the invention, that might be a problem. It's kind of like Thomas Edison getting the credit for creating the light bulb when he didn't do shit, right?
Yep.
So it's like, I feel like maybe you do deserve royalties if you actually create something phenomenal that serves humanity.
That's where like the law gets like very like messed up, where it's like you write contracts and everything like that, where like you work for this company and like when you sign up to be that employee, they take all intellectual rights to it. Yep. I've been like that with every restaurant that I work at. Like, I create a dish, I make a special, or I make a new thing to add to the menu. That recipe now belongs to the company and not me. Granted, in the food industry, you just make a couple alterations and then you just take it somewhere else. So it's a little bit different, but it's kind of like the same thing.
And, their argument is you're using their resources, they are investing in you, and they're investing you to give them a product. So, there's an argument that way too, but...
because how far would these writers get without them?
Yeah.
Granted, I have no idea how writers work in Hollywood. For all I know, they are freelancers and they do, like, submit to studios and everything, but that studio is the one that kind of creates it. So that's where it gets like, well, they did have the core concept. The writer is like the soul.
Yeah.
Like, that's the soul, and like that, and then like the body is made by the studio.
And I think a lot of studios now think, we don't even need writers, we can use AI. I just read that
I know. That's what they're trying to stop right now, though.
Brightburn 2 is being created with AI. I'm like, the first Brightburn wasn't very good, so I don't think an AI created version is going to be good either. So I don't know. Interesting times, politics.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on politics? Anything else on Spider-Man?
Nope. I think that's all I got for now.
All right.
All right.
Well, now we are at the comic book store.
Yeah.
And as soon as they enter, everybody is shocked to see a girl there. And Penny picks up a comic book, hoping her to complete her task as soon as possible. But Sheldon says that, oh, that's a great choice, provided he already has an understanding of Infinite Crisis in 52 and is familiar with the reestablishment of the DC multiverse. Penny is just deer in the headlights.
Love that Sheldon doesn't even say that like meanly. He's just like, oh yeah, it would work. Just make sure he does this and this.
Yeah.
And Penny's like,
it wasn't condescending or anything like
not
that.
Not condescending. Yeah.
Yeah. The look on her face. What's a multiverse? And Sheldon's like, I'm done with you. You got to go. And now we meet Stuart, whom is very charming. But spoiler alert, don't get used to it.
Uh-oh.
Played by Kevin Sussman. And I recognized him when I first saw him, but I just couldn't pinpoint where I've seen him before. But he's been on like several shows, Law and Order, ER, the movie Hitch, and more recently he's been in Better Call Saul, and he's also in Big Bang Theory alum's new show, Call Me Kat, who stars Mayim Bialik. So now Penny says, oh, he seems nice, but for someone that's into comic books. And it's a little insulting. And that's one of the criticisms that I've heard about with this show. I've never really taken offense into things like that, but I know a lot of people out there get offended when they treat comic book readers as almost like outcasts.
And I think that's an old stereotype, because even when they went into this comic book shop, and this is like 2009, but I still go to comic book shops pretty regularly, once a week or so. There's just as many women in them as guys, and they look like they're from all different backgrounds. So it's like really, it's definitely a stereotype and an unfair one. So I get the joke, but it's cliche too.
Yeah, and we get people like Captain Sweatpants who make us look bad. And now we cut to Sheldon and Howard battling over a comic. They're cycling through the comic books, and they finally find one that they want, and they both want it at the same time.
Got it.
Howard needs it to complete his Batman collection, whereas Sheldon needs it to complete his Robin collection. I looked into what issue this is. They're fighting over All-Star Batman Robin, The Boy Wonder, number 8. And I hopped online and read the summary, and that shit is dark.
What is it?
Like, oh my god, I feel like I shouldn't, like, I don't want to give people nightmare fuel, but I was like, people think like a lot of times like the old comic books were like a little bit more wholesome.
Yeah,
this shit ain't wholesome. I'll just tell you, but like I'll cut this part out just because I don't want to, like, you know what, people don't need to be subjected to this.
They don't need nightmares from our podcast.
Feel free.
Non-nightmares.
So a great callback. Howard suggests that they rock, paper, scissors, lizard Spock for it. But Sheldon ain't willing to gamble that.
I'm not going to gamble. I noted that too. I like, did he say lizard Spock? And he did.
He did. Yeah. And now we cut back over to Penny and Stuart. Stuart, very charming. Penny asks, what do you recommend for a 13-year-old boy? And he says, a 13-year-old girl. Very true.
Yeah.
And Stuart recommends Hellblazer, a morally ambiguous confidence man who smokes, has lung cancer, and is tormented by the spirits of the undead. And I did an IQ point on what Hellblazer is. So, Hellblazer, this is John Constantine. There was a movie in 2005 with Keanu Reeves.
There's supposed to be a sequel coming out.
Yeah, he's been in talks to do another
Yeah.
one. And there was also a TV show in 2014, and that same version was in the Arrowverse franchise. So he's actually a very popular character. And it's like I always known who John Constantine was, but I didn't realize that Hellblazer was like the name of the comic line. Yeah. But a little bit more into who John Constantine is. He is a working class warlock, exorcist, occult detective, and con man from Liverpool who is stationed in London. He has a reputation as being one of the most powerful sorcerers in the world. Despite this, he rarely uses magic, instead choosing to use his wits to trick his opponents. He is known for his endless cynicism, deadpan wit, ruthless cunning, and constant chain smoking. But he is also a passionate humanitarian driven by heartfelt desire to do some good in his life. Originally, he was a supporting character who played a pivotal role in American Gothic, a Swamp Thing story, and Constantine received his own comic in 1988. The musician Sting was a visual inspiration for the character. And the term Hellblazer isn't used in media right now because people are afraid that that the audience will mistake it for the Hellraiser movies.
Oh,
yeah, so that's why it's like, you know what? Let's call him Constantine. Or
That's
John
fair.
Constantine. You know, it's like, yeah, I can't use Hellblazer anymore.
Although, by all means, the movie was pretty tame, but they have some animated features as well. And some it got into some Hellraiser stuff, some demon sex parties, if you will. And
well.
that's what hell's all about: demon sex parties.
When in hell.
When in hell, screw a demon. Or let the demon screw you. I don't know.
And there's our opener. Well, now they see all right, and now Penny sees a drawing of her and they start getting a little flirty again. Stuart being charming as fuck. She asks if it's her, and Stuart's like, oh, it depends if you like it. And she does, so yeah, it is her. And I love this. Is like, well, what if I didn't like it? Well, it would still be you, but I would just kind of feel like an idiot. And then Howard sees this. Is like, dang, I gotta learn how to draw, which then forces him to lose his comic book.
Yeah, he snatches it away. It's like,
And then Penny and Stuart exchange numbers, and Sheldon, here's that callback. So Leonard, how are you enjoying Anything Can Happen Thursday?
Love that line.
What a way to kick him when he's down.
Yeah. It's like anything can happen.
Well, now we're back at the apartment. Sheldon is upset of the dent that Howard made in the comic, and Leonard is in a foul mood, and Sheldon consents it. And then Sheldon notices this and is like, do you want some advice? Leonard says, sure. And his advice is, well, this is a perfect time to launch a blog with an interactive comment section. Dick.
I did a little IQ point on, they were watching a Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
And so he picks up because Leonard turns off the episode and he says, did you just turn off the classic episode Trouble with Tribbles from Deep Space Nine? So I looked this up and it turns out that this was season 5, episode 6, aired November 4th, 1996. And it's so it is a crossover episode that connects Deep Space Nine to the original Star Trek, the original series. and it's called Trials and Tribulations. And apparently, what happens is Deep Space Nine crew are transported back in time, and through the use of digital resources, the filmography inserted them into classic footage. And so it's like a crossover with the classic footage of the Tribbles episode. And we talked about the Tribbles episode where the Star Trek crew finds these little animals and tries to keep them as pets. But then they start fornicating and they have all these little furry animals everywhere on the spaceship. And so in this one, apparently there's a bomb that needs to be uncovered and dealt with, but there's too many little tribbles everywhere to find the bomb. They're able to find it and safely get it away. And then they go back to their own time without screwing things up too much. But I thought it was really interesting that when they said crossover, I'm like, Deep Space Nine, that was like in the late 90s. What do they mean crossover? Apparently it's because they digitally inserted and had actors act in like old film settings, I guess. So I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't realize that. And that's what he turned off.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. We should start. We aren't Star Trek fans, and we don't really know where to start. So if anybody has some recommendations of where to start, let us know.
And we've watched some. It's not that we dislike it. It's just something that we've never really sought out, right?
Yeah.
But I'd watch more. I thought that was an interesting premise. Going back in time and
like a little crossover, a little multiverse action.
Like, how did they cross over? That was like, what, 30 years apart? So, technology, magic.
Well, now Leonard is wondering why Penny is interested in Stuart and not him. And hate to break this to you, buddy, but she was interested in you, and you messed it up.
Yeah,
twice.
He didn't try very hard.
Like, you messed it up hard.
He was in bed with her. He was in bed, and he screwed it up. He could have just made it work.
And they went on a date after season 1.
Yeah.
And the beginning of season 2, he messed it up by, like, basically calling her dumb.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, you messed it up. And, like, if you wanted to recover, you can. You just got to put in a little bit of effort.
Fix yourself, bro.
So save the pity party for another time.
Yeah.
But then Leonard is, like, dwelling over this because it's like, dude, we're practically the same person. And Sheldon is like, no. Stuart is taller, artistic, and self-employed. He is. I don't know if they actually established this, but he's actually the owner of the comic book store. So he actually owns it. So he's a business owner, too.
I don't think they said that until he said self-employed. I saw him behind the register, so I assumed, but they didn't actually say it.
Yeah, he owns the comic book store. So that's another big point. He's a business owner. And most significantly, he gets 45% off comic books.
Yeah.
Which you'd think it would actually be more if he's the owner. He should get that shit wholesale.
You would think so.
Or just read it and put it on the shelf.
That's what I'm thinking. I remember having friends in high school with like people who worked at a video game store, and they would like open up one game. Like every time they got a new game, they'd open one up and they'd all play it and beat it, and they'd like sell it again or something.
You know what? I could fully condone that, because as a salesperson, you need to be able to understand the product.
Yeah. It's the benefits of working. You need to be able to sell it. You need to know the product and sell it accordingly, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, now we're at the stairs, and Sheldon is stoked because it's Friday, and that means Chinese food and vintage video games. And I love this part because I actually used to have my own vintage video game night too. Except I didn't invite any friends over, and that's why it was amazing. A pizza to myself, a 6-pack of beer, and vintage video games.
Just me and my video games.
It was awesome.
Did I say I used to have a night? That's every night. 6-pack beer, pizza, vintage video games. That's how I live.
Oh yeah. You know what? And then anything can happen Thursday. I throw in some wings.
Maybe a blizzard from DQ.
Oh yeah.
Anything can happen.
Well, now Penny and Stuart enter, and they're going out. Because apparently uh, Stewart has an art piece on exhibit. Dude, this guy, come on. He's
That
business owner. He has art pieces in galleries and everything like
that's
that.
pretty
Come
cool.
on.
Yeah. Like he doesn't have to be the best looking guy, and he's still like, I'd be interested. All
Yeah, and that's the
right.
thing. It's like, dude, you're pretty suave. You're very charming. You're an artist. You're a business owner. It's like, holy shit, this guy fucks.
You got your shit together.
Yeah. And Stewart is very stoked about it. And then Sheldon is saying that they're playing the 1980s interactive text adventure Zork, but the buggy version.
So I looked into this. Did you look into it at all?
I didn't.
I'm a little confused because he says buggy version, and I have to say that that might not be entirely accurate or possible. So what I found out, according to Wikipedia, this game started off in 1977. It's a text-based adventure by Tim Anderson, Mark Blank, Bruce Daniels, and Dave Lebling. Uh, for the PDP-10 mainframe computer. And the way they did it, it took years for it really to get off. It was part of they were working on it at MIT, I believe, and I think it eventually, when it was released in like three parts. I believe Apple picked it up because Microsoft had Microsoft Adventure or something going on, and so some weird things going on when it finally did get released in 1980. But it was originally like in the late 70s that they had it, and apparently on the MIT computers and these mainframes there was like no security, so other people logging in could like see what games were being made or played, and other people started like spreading it and playing it and then reporting bugs back. And so it's like without even like, from my understanding, requesting like this is a beta version, report your bugs. People just started playing it and the information started coming in. And so the workers started fixing all the bugs gradually until like 1980. Yeah. So like over the years. And again, it took like several years for them to say, okay, this is the endpoint. We're not going to make any more. I believe the final update came in 1981, but the notion is that yeah, I don't know if there's one beta version because it seemed like everybody was playing it. Everybody was sending in feedback with bugs, and they were constantly revamping it over the course of 3-4 years. And then it sold several 100,000 units or something up into the mid 80s. But yeah. And I think that's pretty much all I got. But I also got the story. It is about a empire in the future ruled by somebody named Lord Dimwit Flathead. And he has rules under the Great Underground Empire, which he runs into the ground with needless funds and things, and people end up abandoning the empire, and you take place as a character entering this abandoned empire. And apparently they try to make it gender neutral, so they took out pronouns, and they don't really describe the character to make it more immersive.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
They're already acknowledging that anybody can be a gamer.
right, and that, I mean, it's like reading your own self-adventure book, that it's the purpose is to enjoy the adventure, not who am I or don't tell me who I am. Yeah,
Did you ever do any text-based games?
I've played some text-based games.
They're pretty fun. Like they're actually like very creative. They actually like it requires a lot of creativity
Yeah,
in it.
and I remember my friend in the early 90s had a computer disk, and it was like 100 PC games, and most of them were shit, but they're mostly text adventures, and like we would play them and just like type in random stuff, and most of them are garbage, but it was still just so much fun. And like you said, takes so much creativity and so much thought to think about all the things that a player can input and what could happen in response. And most things would get like invalid command, and so we like kept yeah.
It's almost like D&D where it's like you kind of just have to like say like what you want to do. I want to go north. I want to open the door. I want to search under the mat, things things like that.
I want to take my clothes off and dance. Invalid command.
Yeah.
What?
That doesn't sound right. I don't want to take off my pants.
You're gonna head north. Okay, computer.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I am. Wink, wink.
Well, Penny and Stuart leave, and this makes Leonard very sad. So he decides, let's go to a bar. Let's meet some women. And Howard's like so stoked. That smile on his face was like so genuine. He's like,
it's time
yes!
to shine.
All right, well let me go change out of my underwear. They're like, what? He's wearing Aquaman underwear. And in the event that he actually does hook up with someone, he doesn't want them to see him. So you know what? Good call.
I did a little IQ point here because I don't think girls, I don't know. I think it's everybody's interest, but if a girl was wearing Aquaman underwear, I would think it was cool. I think that there's nothing necessarily wrong, but I looked up sexiest guys underwear, and I didn't find anything on patterns, but I have a little snippet. We can decide if we should keep it or not, but a little side story. But first, the facts. Sexiest guys underwear, according to gentleman'sjournal.com, which was reporting on a survey done by GQ.com, boxer briefs, the medium length boxer briefs, are by and far considered the sexiest underwear for guys. 64.5% of women out of 200 women were questioned. 64.5% said these were the type of underwear they want to see their guys in. Boxers were the second at 19%. So that's like quite a decrease. And then trunks, short length trunks, which I'm guessing are kind of like boxer
oversized boxers.
Yeah. It says short length, so I was thinking like shorter. 11.5%. And then actual briefs were there at 5%. And it suggested that briefs are disliked because the stereotypes with them. They are considered dad underwear. Some people say they look too much like bikini bottoms. And some people, the whole notion of tidy whities are just criticized. But I have to say, some girls, 5%, I guess, don't mind that. It's like a dad bod. Some girls like dad bods. Some girls like bikini bottoms. But my story about underwear, since I found nothing about patterns, I have a pair of underwear, Sax underwear, which, do you know anything about Sax?
No.
They're guys' underwear. They have netting to like keep things in place. They're okay, but they're pricey. And they have cool styles. So I tried them out. And I got one that was kind of like abstract. And I don't know what they're supposed to be. But between me and my partner, we've started saying that they are covered in toothed vaginas. And she hates them. She absolutely hates them. And every time she sees them, she cringes and like runs away. So I'm going to say that patterns do make a difference, just not as much of a difference as the actual style. And I've never had anybody mention anything like this. And I think I mentioned before that brown corduroy bothers me. So I understand something causing somebody to cringe like this. But yeah, it's a pattern that looks like toothed vaginas. And I don't even know why I ended up with it. It was like just a free one. I'm like, yeah, I'll add that to my cart. And then it became clear that these are not you don't get any action in these type underwear.
I can't speak for women, but from a guy's perspective, I don't think most men would care what kind of underwear a girl is wearing, because if you get to see their underwear, something's about to happen.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
So kind of who cares?
Worst case is granny panties, and I'm not thinking I'm not in my mind saying, "Oh, those are granny panties." I'm saying, I see her underwear, right?
Yes, yes, I see. Yes, I got her in her underwear.
I win today.
Yeah.
I don't.
Ryan for the win.
Yeah.
But from any of our female audience out there, maybe chime in. I would love to actually get like a little bit of follow up on this. Send us an email. Do you feel like the pattern that the man wears makes a difference? Like if you were on like your third date and you're gonna hook up with him, and all of a sudden he's wearing Aquaman tidy whities or something like that, would that be like? Is that like? See, is that a date killer?
I would say if he's wearing, I'm curious what our fans will say, but our listeners will say. But if it's like obvious, those underwear are like Transformer whitey tidies from the early '90s. That would concern me. like
why would you still have
this? Yeah, why do you have why?
I like vintage things I got on eBay.
It's vintage. Why do they have stains?
Shh, don't worry about that.
You're getting lucky. I don't want to.
Well, any more underwear talk?
That's all I got for the underwear talk.
All right. Well, now we are at the bar, and Raj tries to order, but Howard is just raining on his parade. First, he would like a grasshopper with a tiny umbrella. Vetoed. So then he asks for a chocolate martini. Vetoed. So then he goes for the brandy Alexander. And I had to look this up because I remember when I was like, when I actually was a bartender, I had to like learn this just to get certified. But nobody has ever ordered, like when I was a bartender, no one has ever ordered a brandy Alexander. But it does sound pretty tasty. It is 1 ounce of brandy, 1 ounce of creme de cacao, and 1 ounce of heavy cream, and a nutmeg garnish.
Ooh.
Sounds pretty tasty. Maybe we'll have to order it.
I'm down to try it.
Well, Howard ditches Raj. They went from the Three Musketeers to the dynamic duo. And here is Howard's plan of the night. He is going to let the lawyers and the jocks thin out the herd, and then they're going to go after the weak, the old, and the lame. Wow.
I like how he puts lawyers up there with jocks. Like jocks, I understand. They're physically fit. They make a lot of money. Usually they're good looking. But lawyers, like...
Well, I mean, it's more like when you introduce yourself, the first thing you do is like, whoa, what do you do? People are going to be impressed by a lawyer.
Really? Man, I
is it because you grew up with a family of lawyers?
Yeah, I see them as overworked, overstressed, and not fun people to be around. So that's like a red flag for me.
That's honestly, I watch Suits, and like, how do they ever have a social life?
They don't.
Like, they don't. They barely have time to work out and get a bagel in the morning. It's like, yeah, don't date well, not necessarily a corporate lawyer, because they work 9 to 5.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, now we cut back to Penny and Stuart, and they are done with the art show, and now he's dropping her off, and she invites him in for coffee. Damn, Penny's ready. She must like him.
He's doing a good job. Up until this point, he's done good.
Yeah, because of Sheldon. He's not. I love that he's like not naive and innocent, where he doesn't realize that coffee doesn't mean coffee.
I would have said yes, but not have assumed it meant anything more than coffee.
Yeah,
like
let's just hang out a little more.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'll take some coffee. It's going to keep me up, but I want to hang out with you. And then if it was more, I'd be like, nice, but I wasn't expecting it to be more. I would never expect it to.
I'll take caffeine at 9 p.m. to hang out with someone that I really want to.
I'll make it work, yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Take a melatonin later or something. Yeah. Some ZQL.
And then enter the buzzkill Sheldon. And Sheldon is in desperate need of Stuart because he's been in a chat room for 3 hours debating if the original Batman dies permanently, the Batman cowl should go to the original Robin, Dick Grayson. And then Stuart just puts him in his place. He's like, oh, sorry, but you couldn't be more wrong. And Sheldon is like, What the fuck? But Stewart does say that Dick Grayson became Nightwing, a superhero in his own right. So Batman, the second Batman, has to be Jason Todd.
I like
And then this kicks off the great debate.
little bit about the word choice there. More wrong.
Couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah. So I like this up because the English
Should we call this an IQ point?
Yeah, I'm down. I don't know if it's going to make us any smarter, but why not? It's not going to make us more dumber. Oh no. So the problem Sheldon has with it is that wrong is supposed to be an absolute state. It's not subject to degradation. So it's like right or wrong. Something is true or something is false. However, we don't live in a world of complete binaries like that. And the first thing I thought of is SAT or ACT tests that say give the most correct answer. And the notion is that an answer can be correct, but one might be more correct. It might be have more reason to be picked or chosen. However, if we're thinking in terms of binaries, something's correct or it's not. However, most people understand that something can be more true than something that is partially true, or something is correct, something is more correct. In fact, in one of my grammar assignments for my class, I have pick the most incorrect statement. And every single statement has something incorrect about it, but the most incorrect one has like 4 or 5 things wrong with it as opposed to 1 or 2. And so I'm like trying to force students to pick out the errors and understand the errors as opposed to just picking the most right one or most correct. But yeah, so the notion is technically he says little wrong. It's a little wrong to say a tomato is a vegetable, but it's very wrong to say a suspension bridge is a vegetable. And the notion is tomato is actually a fruit. We've talked about this. Seeds are on the inside.
It's in the berry family.
Yeah, it's in the berry family. So suspension bridge is not even edible. So technically it is more incorrect, more wrong to say a bridge is a food or a vegetable. Then I looked up, is it acceptable? What's more correct to say, more wrong or wronger? And apparently both are acceptable.
I've never even heard of wronger.
Wronger.
You're wronger.
Although more wrong seems to be used more frequently. And there were some suggestions throughout the web that wronger is used for comical purposes, but I didn't see anything to state one way or another. And I think, we first have to assume that wrong is a condition that can be more or less so. And then we can say, is it more wrong or wronger? So the whole thing is convoluted or over the top. But yeah, apparently, if you want to say it, more wrong is the way to go. But technically, it's open-ended, and most people would agree that something can be wrong to us on a spectrum.
That sounds wronger.
That's wrong. No, I did get more dumber. Oh no,
more dumber. But yeah, I guess I've never thought about it as like a spectrum. I guess yeah, like it's just like what Sheldon said. Like you can't really live in absolutes. It's not black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good point.
But the other thing I was thinking of was Friends, where Joey comes in and says, could I be wearing any more clothes? When he puts on all Chandler's clothes to get back at him for some sort of stunt.
Well, that was more of a joke on how Chandler talks.
Yeah, exactly. Could I be wearing any more clothes?
God, I love that. We're back at the bar again, and Raj is getting another Brandy Alexander.
Alexander me.
Leonard and Howard are prowling around, and the first set of girls is rejected by Howard since they're eating peanuts because he's allergic to to peanuts.
I'm kind of surprised because haven't we seen him take the hit before and swell
Yep.
up? Yeah, so I figure he would have given it.
Risked it.
Yeah, risked it.
It seemed pretty instantaneous, though.
Yeah. Maybe he's drawing the line there now.
Yeah,
He's
it's
grown
like,
as an individual.
let's not. Then they pinpoint two other girls and they become their targets. But they allude that they're not very attractive because one has a whiplash collar and the other keeps blinking. And Howard's strategy is to do a magic trick where Leonard puts something in his mouth, they stumble over and they pull it out. And Howard says, "Oh, my friends have had too much. Having too much fun." And then they get them drunk and tell them that they're millionaires. What could go wrong?
If girls came up to me and pulled that trick on me, I would want to talk to them.
But
that would
it's
make me laugh.
different. Guys have lower standards. Let's face it.
But that's
it's
funny.
true.
That's funny.
It is like,
more
because
fun.
it does show some personality.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Howard can have the advantage, but he just harnesses it in a very inappropriate way.
And then adding get them to a 0.15 BAC blood alcohol level and say we're millionaires.
Well, Leonard doesn't like this plan, and Howard asks if he'd be willing to sit on his lap and pretend to be a ventriloquist. And rejected again. And I love Howard is like, well, we can't switch roles because you don't know the routine. So it makes me wonder. It really got me wondering because Howard is supposed to like, he constantly tells them like, oh, I go out to bars, I hit on girls, and I hook up with girls. Like, but all of these strategies requires another person. So who is he going out with if he's not hanging out with them?
It's true, and I can't say that he's lying because he did find the doctor girl, right? The doctor lady that Leonard ended up dating for a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Dr. Stephanie.
Yeah, Stephanie. He does find them. He must, I don't know, have other friends, or maybe he has.
Yeah, I was kind of like, who's his wingman?
Yeah,
if he has all these pickup game that requires another person, who is he going out with?
Interesting question.
I don't know. I just thought about that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, now we're back at Penny's, and Sheldon and Stuart are still arguing over Batman, and Sheldon wins due to his resilience. And Sheldon takes the W because a win's a win.
That's horrible.
Yep. And Penny is asleep, and they decide to just leave because, like, you know what? She will go at you. She will rip you apart if you wake her up.
You know,
I love this. Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna give myself 1 point. I wasn't gonna do it, but I really hate that Sheldon's giving himself that win. I could not do that.
Because it's an empty victory.
Yeah, I would say, like, no, you're not going to bed yet until we settle this.
Yeah, it's kind of like the arguments are there, and you're only taking the victory based off the energy level of the person. Where it's like, dude, you didn't win.
That's not
just
a win.
Like that person is just, I don't want to argue this anymore. That doesn't mean you win. I'm just tired of it because we're not going to see eye to eye. Yeah.
The other person just gives up and goes to bed. You can continue it for another day. That's fine, but it's not a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Sheldon lost that one, like, in reality, because it really shouldn't, like, because Dick became Nightwing.
If he became Nightwing, he is not going to be.
He has his own line of comics.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, didn't Jason Todd become Red Hood? Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to decide who becomes Batman. It should be Batman Beyond. It should be Terry McGinnis and do Batman Beyond.
You know, I saw Batman Beyond, the whole series, on sale on Amazon. I think I'm going to get it because I would like to watch Batman Beyond again.
Is it not on Max?
Is it?
Well, it's Warner
Sometimes I forget to
Brothers.
look for series on streaming services.
Dude, Batman Beyond is the best.
I
Holy
watched a lot of it,
fuck.
but I never finished it.
It's so good. Like if they're gonna do they better bring a live action Batman Beyond at some point. They
That
better.
would be good.
Oh my god.
It'd be hard to mess that up. It would be hard to mess it up.
Dude, imagine like um a Blade Runner world with Batman in it. That's Batman Beyond.
Yeah. I remember like the Jokers are all like it's like
The
gang, right?
yeah.
So
Like they're inspired by the Joker, so they like paint their faces and everything like that.
but it's all techno punk and futuristic, and
Yeah,
I like it.
flying cars and everything like that. Yeah, I feel like it would be. I didn't write fan fiction, but in my own headcanon, it's like, imagine if they had that, like, if they did a Batman Beyond, I would want. Wait, did you watch it all yet?
Batman Beyond? No, I've only seen like the first season, first and a half, maybe half of it total.
Okay. So what they should do is they should keep it kind of relatively grounded, almost like the Nolan style Batmans,
Yeah.
where the main antagonist is the Royal Flush Gang,
Mhm.
where it's a family of gangsters and everything like that. But make it a little bit more realistic, where they're not dressed up as like the king and the queen and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But then have that fantasy side of it and bring in Ink, who is more who is basically like the futuristic Clayface.
Yeah.
That would be dope. Because it's kind of grounded in reality, but has a little bit of like comic book twist to it. But that there's like this supernatural villain too.
Little supernatural.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
That's. I hope Warner Brothers is listening to us right now. They obviously are.
They might be mad about what we said about Fables, though, because they're connected with DC. So,
Wah. I guess we'll get sued. How dare you badmouth Fables?
It's in the public domain, I swear.
Well, now we're back at the bar, and Howard is talking to some girls, and he is doing a card trick, and it failed. And Leonard is completely perplexed by everything that's happening, because he's like, dude, I thought you were good at this. And Howard just deflects, and he blames it all on Leonard. Bro, you're cramping up my style. And you know what? I am a solo hunter. I'm a falcon, and you can't tell the falcon how to hunt. He's like, apparently you can. It's called falconry.
There's a whole sport about it.
And then they turn to leave because they're defeated, and they see Raj hooking up with someone. Good for him, man.
Lucky bastard.
And, yeah.
I love that line.
And Howard's like, it must be the accent. And then he turns to a girl, throws on an Indian accent, and calls himself Sanjay Wolowitz.
Wolowitz.
And now we cut to the ending scene where Raj wakes up with the girl, and he tries to leave, and she just bear hugs him even tighter. Oh, that looks very comfortable. Like, being the small spoon is kind of nice.
And I like he just gives in. He's like, all right. Okay. Girls in. I'm like, go Raj.
And I will say, this proves that Raj has the most game out of everyone.
Yeah.
He has naturally hooked up with the most girls, because earlier he hooked up with the girl from the Halloween episode.
Yeah, I was going to say the party, right?
Yeah, and it's more natural, whereas Howard does hook up with girls, but it's a lot more transactional. Like, there was the girl, Penny's friend from the Dumpling Paradox. She was only using him for his money.
Yeah.
Then there's Leslie, who's only using him to be arm candy. Like, she doesn't care about him, so it's kind of like, I don't know if I really count that as like a genuine hookup, because Howard was more of the target than Leslie was the target for Howard.
Yeah, she was using him more.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, dude, I mean, that's great that you're hooking up with them, but he doesn't have game. Raj actually somehow has game.
And even when he was on the train and talking to
Summer.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he wasn't even drunk. It's just the psychological stunt that, or
Yeah.
right, that holds him back.
Yeah. Well, that was the episode.
That's the episode.
We did it. Overall thoughts again, now that we've kind of talked about it?
You know, I still liked it. I'm not gonna say it's one of my favorite, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So you know, had it been a Halloween episode or a Christmas episode, it probably would have boosted it, but it was still a solid episode.
Well, we love the holiday themed episodes.
I love holiday themed episodes.
Well, all right. Let's count up these IQ points.
I am at 64 points being not like Sheldon and 66 being like Sheldon. So I think I went up 1 point on both sides this episode.
And I lost count. All right, hold on.
What was I doing? I'm getting dumber.
7 IQ points.
Right.
Well, that was the episode. Please remember to leave us a review on Apple, and you can be entered in to win a $100 gift card to Amazon. Subscribe to us on YouTube, gingerly tap that like button. Follow us on Instagram at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Again, all this information is in our show notes. And we will see you next time when we talk about Season 2, Episode 21, The Vegas Renormalization. Thanks for listening. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl. Thanks for listening.
I want to take my clothes off and dance.